Good afternoon and welcome to Trench Talk, our first and hopefully a series of webinars for the geothermal community. Our hope is that we can share nuts and bolts, nitty-gritty details that are important to designers, installers, and service personnel in our industry. So certainly we want to share what we've learned over the decades of us being in this industry. But like today, I want to bring forth contractors who can share their best practices and their experiences as well. So hopefully this is fruitful for all of us and we can all learn and strengthen our skill set. So today, what to expect? We're going to spend the first 20 minutes or so going through the NetZero improvements and update as to where we were when we first presented this product. Then we're going to open it up to our 5 contractors. I think we've got at least 4 of them on board right now, to let them sort of share what they've learned in installing NetZeros. And I want to thank them now, and not only for joining us today, but we learn through what they do. There's no way anybody can read a book and know all the nuances required. So thanks, guys. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. A quick review of the NetZero. There's basically 2 configurations: the basic, or low boy on the left, compact, which is quite kind of a questionable name, but it's also the tall boy, we refer to it as. And the difference is the tall boy has a built-in 43-gallon stainless steel domestic hot water tank. And think of the word compact as it really reduces the square footage required in a mechanical room for both a heat pump and a hot water heater. So that's why the word compact does make some sense. Sizes, there's 3 nominal sizes, 9, 12, 22 kW, and these are the AHRI ground loop rating heating capacities. You can get variations. The heat variations, heat only, heat plus HTR, and you can think of HTR as a desuperheater on steroids. It can do 100% domestic hot water heating, or it can operate as a desuperheater. You can also have emergency heat built into the unit, up to 6 kilowatts of electric supplemental heat. And then you can get the heat, HTR, and emergency. And I've highlighted it because that's going to feed into our stocking plan as a standard configuration. Cool variations, you don't have to have cooling. It can be reversible. There's passive cooling, and then there's a combination of reversible plus passive. You're going to need the passive if you want to apply it as an air source application. So keep that in mind, but we're going to be stocking strictly the reversible because we feel the bulk of the volume is going to be in geothermal applications. But certainly if you want to go air source, we have to order it specifically for that. The stocking units, we're going to put the size. It's either 9, 12, or 22. And it's either a C or a B for compact or basic. That reduces our stocking units down to 6 instead of the all 72 variations, which simply is not doable or practical. Also want to reinforce the notion that it is multi-source. Although designed principally for geothermal, it can be air source. It can be a combination of both. And we're kind of excited about the work being done in our own shop, where we're going to use an artesian well as a source, except when it goes dry, which it does periodically. We have a 1,000-gallon solar heated tank with our evacuated tube collectors in the front of our building. And we also have the air source approach. And most of the software to handle this is built into the heat pump. Switching between the artesian well and a solar heated tank, well, that we sort of have to do externally. Application capacity ranges. You can cascade up to 3 equal capacity units to cover a range of capacities from 36,000 up to 212,000. So it has tremendous range for only having 3 nominal sizes. I want to talk briefly about why the efficiency is so spectacular. And the red dotted line, I've taken a typical single speed water-to-water heat pump and looked at it operating over the range of loads. And the loads are at 100% load, we've got a 30-degree source and 120-degree load, all the way down to a 25% load, where our loop temperatures are typically warmer. And with outdoor reset, our load temperatures are going to be cooler. So at these 4 different conditions, I've plotted the COP of a single speed heat pump. This is steady state, and we know that single speed will be cycling on and off to meet the varying loads that it's going to experience. So this is a best case COP steady state, and in reality, it's going to be lower than that. But we take a look at the NetZero, the 3 different sizes. And yes, when it's operating at 100% load, it's very similar to a regular single speed heat pump. But as the load decreases and the RPM of the compressor dials down, it continues to run, reduces capacity. And when it's doing that, the heat exchangers are relatively oversized now for the BTUs. So the pressure ratio collapses, efficiency goes up to as high as 70 to over 7 COP at 25% load. Now, when you look at the bin hour distribution, and this is for Syracuse, the bulk of the hours are in these part load conditions. So that's where the accumulation or the weighted average of hours times COP can easily generate COPs 20, 30, possibly even 40% higher than a conventional water-to-water heat pump. And if you really design your hydronic distribution system to lower the required load temperatures, these numbers even get better. That's what makes this product so remarkable. Hallelujah. We've got AHRI certification. And Charlie's going to drop a link into the chat box. It's this link right here. So you can download all 72 certificates and then print out the one you need or extract the one you need when you apply for a rebate. The heating capacities, full load heating capacities over here are indeed what you're going to use to calculate your rebate. But I want to point out that the full load cooling capacities in the AHRI documents are significantly understated. And I won't go into all the details why, because it's really not important. You just got to realize that this machine is capable of far more cooling capacity than what's listed in the AHRI. We have developed a calculator that took the graphical data within the NetZero manuals, and it allows you to estimate pretty closely capacities, efficiencies, heat of extraction, heat of rejection, and also identify a flow rate that correlates to a delta T. So in this example, we've got a 7-degree delta T in heating on the water side. Well, that would correlate to a 15.3 GPM. And the internal pump, you would have net available head of 23.9 feet of head. So it's something to keep in mind when applying this. You do have an internal pump, but you may find yourself in situations where you need to add an external pump to get the flow rates you need. So you pick your size up here and your configuration. It'll automatically spit out a model number, an AHRI reference number, and that same link to obtain certificates is built into this spreadsheet. Here's an example of the groundwater rating, the ground loop rating for what you selected. So Charlie is going to drop a link to this spreadsheet in the chat window. So I normally don't give away spreadsheets. So this one is yours. And hopefully you'll find it useful in figuring out your jobs and moving forward. Remote monitoring. This is a little video I'm going to play. Hopefully you'll see it and hear it. Actually, this one has no sound, but I'm just going to start it. And it works better with Firefox than some of the other browsers. And you get a screen like this. You click on the word boiler, connect to remote boiler. And this particular unit has a seasonal performance factor, or COP, for since the day it started, of 7.1. You show me any other heat pump that can operate at that kind of seasonal COP, and I'll buy you dinner. Here's some of the graphical data. It's been operating since sometime in December. At the bottom, you'll see a 7.5 in December. That's the COP for December. January was 7.3. February is a little tougher. The loop's getting colder, 6.0. And March didn't have enough data to really register. There's another screen called Information 3 that you can take a look at some of the data here. You scroll down through it. Certainly, you got to get comfortable with Celsius instead of Fahrenheit. And then as this thing scrolls up, that little window there will zoom in. And it's in Celsius. But we also have this chart available that you can use. You can post it next to the heat pump. You can put it on your desk so you can quickly convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So, but that's just the beginning. Our friends up in Canada gave us an introduction to the new and improved remote monitoring. And this is a little snippet of a presentation that Chad went through with us on Friday. So we'll see if this works.
Yeah, so on this equipment list here, so I've only got one kind of test case set up right now, but this is what would show up. So the customer has authorized me to view this. So this information, everything is basically comes up automatically. There's not much I can do with it other than this alias. So I can click on edit, and then this is the alias here. So for me, I just put in our contractor's account number with us, and then the project name, the customer's last name. Yep. You could also add in there, you could put model and serial number of the actual heat pump if you wanted as well. But that's something that's completely customizable. And then you can also select, so I've set up different provinces, for example. So then you can pick you can start to organize things a little bit that way. So that's kind of what you see. And then you can pick a favorite so that when you go onto your dashboard, when you first log in, whatever is marked as your favorite is showing up first. The other ones don't show up. If you want to see a different one, let's say I had another, another one that I wanted to look at, I would just click that other one as a favorite, and it would show up on my front screen here. I believe we've got the ability in here to influence so we can look at what information you want to look at. For example, if we just want to look at, just domestic hot water, for example, just the ground loop, we can see some of those temperatures. So it gives you kind of some of what you're looking at, being able to isolate different pieces out of it. Again, I haven't spent a whole lot of time in it, so it looks like the resolution here is down to like a couple of hours is what it's showing here right now. We'll just have to mess around with it a little bit and see, I guess.
There you go. Exactly what you asked for.
Yeah, so there you go. We've got the ability to do some different stuff there. We can, in real time, we can connect. So this remote link is going to take us into EasyNet when I click this. So I'm not going to do that because we know that it's going to take too long. But looks like there's some file sharing that you can do as well, and it's per customer. So if there was some particular item that someone took a picture and they wanted to share it or something like that of something that was happening with the system or whatever, it looks like you can kind of share some things that way. Looks like some alarm function is going to be part of that as well. Well, this is live now, so you guys can already set up yourselves as a distributor. You should be able to do that already and get that code. Same with your dealer; they should be able to set up the same way. The homeowner, like this is a real live system. I've only done just with one customer though so far, but yeah, you guys we can start with that now. I think before we do it, we should probably have maybe a separate conversation about it, just so that everyone understands the process. We can even, if you had like what I did with this customer, for example, it's someone that I know, the actual homeowner. So I actually set up his account for him, the consumer account. And that gives you the ability, again, to understand what the consumer needs to go through in order to set that up. So you guys might do that maybe, for your system, let's say at your shop, or maybe there's a particular actual homeowner that you actually want to set up that account for them, or someone that that's close to you, that just to see how that process goes, setting it up as a consumer, and then seeing where you actually enter in the dealer code and authorize, and see where you enter in the distributor code and authorize. But I'd be happy to go in actually maybe on another call with you guys. Like this one, I can have a call specifically just about this with you guys, and maybe I can even log into this customer's account so that you can see what a consumer account kind of looks like and where you would enter that information.
So, as Chad said, we're going to need
so on this,
another meeting to really go through some more details and then get you all up to speed on that. We do want to talk about the outdoor sensor failures. We've had 3 of them in the 15 or 18 units that are out in the field. It has failed to operate, or communication problem. For some reason, I don't know if I can previous. Sort of blocking out some of the words here. There's a good explanation as to why they've gone to a communicating sensor instead of a analog one that they've had in the past, but I won't go into those details. But we'll work with you guys if this sensor is a problem for you. We've learned how to sort of adapt and get you replacement ones, but we will want all failed sensors back. The investigation as to the root causes are still being explored. It's a possibility that field wiring practices, because it is a communicating device, shielded cable should be used and not run adjacent to power wiring and so forth. So just wanted to update you that yes, there's a weak link here that we found, but I know the factory's working on it, so we'll keep you posted. Available in LoopLink RLC. If you're not familiar with that program, it helps you design earth loops. And Charlie's going to drop that link into the chat window. The important thing when you pick the unit to model, you got to pick the appropriate load temperatures. So if you've got a marginal hydronic system that you're going to have to push up into 130, 135 range, then you got to pick the 130/40, 40 being a nominal source temperature over the course of a year. So you got to be careful, pick the appropriate one. But LoopLink is a great program. I don't use it for its absolute results. I use it for relative results. So what you want to do is model something you know works and you're comfortable with, and then make changes. Not, one variable at a time will help you analyze how different configuration loops impact system performance and how much pipe you may need. So moving on, tanks. I think this is an exceptional tank. Stainless steel. All new tanks will be NPT connections. And the first few tanks we got had British parallel pipe thread and had to use gaskets and transition fittings and so forth. In the future, that's all gone. Stainless steel, the exterior is PVC. In general, we'll probably be stocking the 400L, maybe the 300L, but when you get down to the 200L, at that point, you're close to the compact and have the tank built into the heat pump. So we probably won't be stocking all three sizes. The real big news is the little plus sign after NetZero. It now includes e-manager functionality to dovetail into a photovoltaic system. And what it will do, it'll manage the excess PV generated electricity and will capture the full retail value rather than allowing those kilowatt hours to go back into the grid where you only recover wholesale value. And it does this by adjusting set points in the various loads, such as domestic hot water or swimming pool, heating, cooling set points will be adjusted to use those kilowatt hours directly and basically store that energy in these thermal loads. To me, it's a remarkable selling feature. And I can't wait to see it in action to really see how well it works. If you've got batteries as part of your PV system, based on what I've read, it'll divert those kilowatt hours to the batteries and use them later out of that battery system. So more to come on this one. New price pages. We just got new price pages, and unfortunately prices go up, and we're all painfully aware of that. But some of the pages in there are very helpful in defining the features and options that are built in. Also what I call the magic decoder ring to help you understand the model numbering system. And that's the basic, sort of a graphical illustration of its various features and services and so forth, whether it's closed loop geothermal, open loop, where you're going to want to use a isolating heat exchanger, air source, or a hybrid, both a geothermal loop and outside air. So, and the cascading feature, up to 3 can be joined together and they will communicate with each other and control themselves. The compact, similar, but simply having the internal domestic hot water tank. And similar feature sheet. And now we've reached the point where I want to open it up to our invited guests to talk about their experience. And we'll go right down through this list. Kevin, if you'd like to kick things off, Kevin's got more installed than anybody else. And, you know, just share what you've learned.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Or John, just give me a thumbs up. Okay. Otherwise, we're going to have 700 people clicking. You know, I almost always tend to take the new technology and something like this and look at it more from the application standpoint, the sales standpoint. I'm lucky enough to have a couple really good guys to kind of install my dreams as it is, set them up for success or failure. One of the really interesting things, I think, just going through the series of the 6 or 7 of them that we've installed, is we had kind of a head scratching issue with a project that we did. And between John and Jared being able to look in the back end and kind of lay a separate set of critical eyes on it, they were able to help us identify, my guys didn't put antifreeze in the loop. And they don't work real well if you don't do that. They trip themselves out. So, you know, that's something that is pretty unique in the industry. I mean, we can kind of share Symphony data through Water Furnace and kind of poke through that and do some screen shares. But that I really like, where you can have another set of eyes looking at this. You know, we have done these systems in just about every application that you can think of with a hydronic system. We've replaced an NDH, like a 12-ton heat pump. We replaced that in an existing home that was about 14 years old. We've put this in an old farmhouse, about 180-year-old construction with air handlers and radiant. We've done it in new construction with mix of air handlers and radiant systems. And then we've done it also in a new build where we're going to be mixing the pool heat function into this. So it's been kind of what we really thought it would be as far as the versatility of the installation. We're definitely very interested in seeing how the data comes back over time, which is pretty powerful. You know, the only things that we've kind of seen with it so far is, unless you have absolute control over what you're doing in the design side, the buffer tank is still kind of an important piece to this, just to be able to manage that low end load. We have done a cascaded system with 222s, and we've also done a non-cascaded with a 12 and a 22. So they kind of do 2 separate aspects inside of the building. And, you know, they've made it through the winter, and that's always the first step. You know, Ryan can talk to this as well. We always get nervous when you get these 7-year itches that are polar vortexes, and you try something new that first year. You hope for a mild winter to not have a break point, but you know, knock on wood, we have not had a lot of issues with the technology, and that speaks highly in my book as to where we can go with this technology.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Let's move on to John Perry. John, I see you there, and I know we talked earlier today, and you're wrestling with the BSPP fittings that haunt us all. So,
I'm glad that tank's being converted. The plumber's driving me nuts.
yeah, you're gonna have to speak up a little bit. I can barely hear you.
I said the plumber's driving us nuts with these tanks. That's why I'm glad that we're switching over to Imperial standards. But yeah, I was a little nervous putting this system in, you know, like anything new. But we went and did it. As far as the machine goes itself, it was great. It was easy installing, a lot smaller than what we're normally used to. We've done water furnace, climate master, and this one here, like Kevin was saying, you know, I got nervous with them telling me, okay, no buffer tank, and so I ended up putting a small buffer tank in, a 22 gallon, but I only had one. And normally we use buffer tanks, you know, 60, 80 gallons, and we do all radiant heat, so that's what we're hooking up to. But monitoring it, having the remote capability, that is unbelievable with as far as that goes with us. We can program it from distance. Like Kevin said, I had a couple issues. Glycol level, we didn't have it low enough, especially it's not what we're used to with the outdoor air units. So we had to bump our glycol down a little, and was afraid to do that because once you go down too much, you start to lose a little bit on the heating side there. So, well, I think we got it down to where it's pretty good now, and we haven't had any issues. The first month it was running, I had the owner of the house call me and, hey, I just got my electrical bill in. He calls me at 7 o'clock at night. I'm like, okay, here we go, you know, and he tells me it was $160. I'm like, huh? And they're still, the house was still under construction. So he had his guys all working there. The doors are open and everything, and we're heating the house radiantly. And he couldn't believe it on how cheap it was to heat. And like, you know, John was showing COP's 7.1. I was just like, I was amazed. I was lucky. I was happy when we got 3s and 4s. And but I think this machine's going to be pretty good for us.
Well, thank you, John. And you also use the AU12 outdoor air coils, right?
Yep, I did a hydro with that, and the wells, I kind of went a little more than half, because when they were telling us we could cut our loops in half, what we needed, I got kind of nervous with that. So I went a little bit more than half, and I see now where we could have probably went the half with the outdoor units. But the biggest thing is having that thing variably speed. We're doing outdoor reset with it, so that thing is modulating up and down. Like I said, it's working pretty good. We do all Wiesmann boilers, ModCon boilers, and I look at this as a Wiesmann boiler as far as doing outdoor reset and modulating up and down. It's pretty cool.
Excellent. Thank you, John. I don't know if Tony's on the call. I haven't seen his name.
I know he called me earlier today, and I know he was going through some things, so I don't know if he's here or not.
Yeah. Well, unless Tony speaks up suddenly, we'll move on to Ryan, who's opened up his shop for an open house we had, and many of you folks went and saw his unit. But Ryan, what can you share with us?
It ran great all winter. Had no issues with them. Had no issues with the other units we have installed. Homeowners loved them. Have absolutely no complaints. We have a pile of them sold so far, so that's, I think, a good thing. We were just waiting on the rebate thing to really make sure Anna would let you start, you know, selling them again. And no, they're awesome unit. I think they're gonna change kind of the whole way hydronic situations are run. That outdoor air sensor thing will be interesting because we ran both of the units that we have had problems with. Those have shielded wire going to them, and both of them have had failures on outdoor sensors. But the one unit had 2 failures alone just by itself, which is kind of weird. No other problems, no nothing else wrong with it at all. So that would be interesting to get that squared away. But otherwise, no complaints at all, and everybody likes them.
If there's one thing that you learned while doing it that might speed up your next install, what would it be?
I would say the wiring portion of it. The piping and the plumbing and all it's super straightforward and much easier than before. Just figuring out how we're gonna wire it and control it. That was a little bit of a. I think Kevin, I think you guys had the same problem with that initially. Would be control wise. Once we got that figured out, they're super simple at this point.
Finding a way to convert it to Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that'd be.
Yep. Very good. Thank you, Ryan. Mr. Snyder, tell us about your experience.
Well, kind of, thinking about what those guys said, I was reading the book, and I guess that's always a positive thing, is to read the book. And then I called Jared and he goes, "Oh, Jim, didn't you get the engineering manual?" And I was like, "Oh no, I don't have that, Jared." Right. So he emailed it to me. Then I read that. So that certainly helped out a lot. I think one of the things that everyone should consider is I had a lot of 55-gallon drums here. So I pre-mixed all my antifreeze and took it to the site, because right in the book, it tells you to go ahead and flush with your pre-mixed fluid, right? And I think that was really important, because I didn't really have any issues. Once I had the engineering manual, I was able to go in and adjust the freeze alarm, temperature and that type of thing. The other thing that's kind of interesting is I received my rebates for the first 2 units today. So
Awesome.
that's always a positive thing, right? I think the customers, you want to involve them a little bit in the system, and how is it running, and how do you look at the status screen. They really like that, I think, and so that Celsius to Fahrenheit conversion chart, I taped it right to the next to the thing, so then they could look and see, oh, what is my hot water temperature, oh, what is the floor temperature. And I think this machine is unbelievably interesting. When I have one of the installs has 2 air handlers, and then then it's radiant then 2 radiant zones. And as soon as those radiant zones are satisfied, then the temperature picks up and it sends much hotter water to the air handlers, based on the setting that you've put in there, because the air handlers aren't doing much when you have 95-degree water going out to the radiant and it's coming back at 70 degrees, something like that. There's not too much that can go on with the air handlers, but it does adjust very quickly, and it does change the temperature of the water going out to the air handlers once you have the sensors in the right place and you have them on the returns coming back from those air handlers. So that's pretty outstanding. I mean, it's really unbelievable. It's like having 2 separate machines in one that can produce high temperature water for your air handler, and one that can produce cooler water for your radiant floor with a much higher COP. So I like that about the units. And I think that once anybody does, I think it would be worth your while, John, to get every dealer you have to put in one of them, because once you get through that process the first time, they're going to buy more of them,
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. I see.
John, I do have one last thing
Okay.
that I'm surprised that none of us actually talked about it. You can't hear these things run. You walk into the basement and the only way you can tell is by putting your ear on the box. That was one of the first things that I noticed with it in the first two that we installed. They were both running and you cannot hear them. That's unique.
Yeah, indeed. I remember the call from Dan Festa. He said, we turned it on. We didn't think it was working. Come to find out it was running just fine. They just couldn't hear it.
You can stand in the mechanical room and have a conversation.
Excellent. I see Stephen Marco's on the call, and I want to give kudos to Stephen. He's up in at GeoSmart in Canada, and Tony Silverio ran into a problem, and Stephen got the factory on the phone. At the factory, it was the middle of the night, and Stephen ended up driving to the airport to ship a part to Tony. Stephen, I don't know if your mic's on, but
Yep.
thank you for doing that. Maybe you can
No
share
problem.
what you dealt with on that night.
Well, sure. That was definitely an interesting day. We had a couple that was related somewhat to the air sensors again, but the air sensors also it took out one other piece to it, and I could have been partially a wiring error on his part that led to the failure, or it might have been just a defective part in the first place. We don't really know for sure, but we had Miguel from the factory on the phone with us, and we were checking some stuff because the main PCO seemed to have lost its memory. But during the conversation, at one point, there was a bit of a spark that happened on top of the machine as he was looking at things. So there could have possibly been maybe a shorted wire on it or something that caused it in the first place. But it was DOA. We ended up driving in an ice storm to the airport, dropped off the parts to ship out to them. And unfortunately, they didn't make it next day like they were supposed to, because I did my part and got it to the airport, but the flights didn't go because we had some really, really bad weather there. But we tried to get it to them to the next day, but we got through it. The one thing I must say for sure with all these heat pumps that I challenge all of you on is let your dreams go wild. They're capable of doing so many different things. And one of the things that I don't know that many of you have been able to try yet is doing simultaneous loads. So I have some customers here in Canada that, for example, want to have in-floor heating while they air condition. So like floor warming to keep the floor warm. Or they heat a pool while they're air conditioning. So I have one customer actually not far from our offices here who heats his outdoor pool. And in the summertime, in July, I've seen his machine run with COPs as high as 14 because it's cooling the house and creating the hot water for the pool at the same time, not using any of the loop or anything like that. So being able to reuse the energy around, there's different ways we can plan on designing the system so that way you can do simultaneous loads. And that's when you're truly taking out two machines and using one with it. The possibilities really are endless. And that's one thing I've really learned a lot about these machines. And I've honestly have never been more excited about a heat pump ever in my life. There's so much we can do with this machine.
Yeah, I share that sentiment. I worked on my first heat pump in 1975. So I've been around heat pumps a little bit of time, and this thing is remarkable. So
Yeah.
I tell people Elon Musk came out with a new computer and he happened to call it a car. EcoForest has come out with a new computer and we happen to call it a heat pump. So pretty sophisticated. So thank you guys. I appreciate that. And we're going to open it up to Q&A. And Mike Wiley, I don't know if your mic is on, but I'd like you to sort of steer any questions you got, throw them out at us?
Yeah, from the chat, John, there was just someone had asked about another open house for NetZero, if anyone's planning one, if we have one on the agenda.
Yes, I want to get our system at our shop finished, and then the plan is to hold an open house at our own shop. So hopefully, unfortunately, winter will be mostly over by the time we get that beast fired up, because it's like the cobbler's kids. We never have enough time to finish our own job. But that is the plan, to have an open house at our shop.
Okay, and we have another one from Joe Canoza. Price book, is it online or is there a link to that price book?
Nope, we're not sharing the price book through this webinar, but Joe, I will send you a price book directly.
That's all the questions on the chat so far, John.
Okay. Any other final words? Unfortunately, I think we had a lot fewer attendees than registered, unfortunately, due to our screw up with Zoom. But we'll try to do better next month. And I want you all to go to our website. If you've got suggestions for future Trench Talk content, there's a very simple form. Our homepage has a Trench Talk logo. You click on that, it'll take you to another page, and in the lower left is a suggestion form. You don't have to put your email or anything, just throw content at us. And the goal is really to share best practices. And I think we can all learn. I have felt forever that this technology is so broad and so deep that no single person has all the right answers. So by sharing, I hope this format helps us all get a little bit better.
Hey, John,
Yes, sir.
how about next month? We talk about your book,
Oh, which book is that?
500 Ways to Heat Hot Water, and they all fucking suck.
Yep. You've increased it from 50 to 500.
500 now, so let's talk about hot water next month.
Okay, that is certainly an interesting subject. And for years, we've struggled with what is the best way to heat hot water. And I'll share one quick story. I worked on a project down in Albany. The guy had 220-gallon electric hot water heaters that he heated off peak. And off peak was like from 11 o'clock at night to 7 in the morning. Well, he goes to work in the morning. His tanks are full of hot water. He gets home at 5 o'clock at night. There's no hot water left because of the magnitude of loss associated with running a recirc system. And since that job, I look at recirc systems as being nothing but a big energy hog. And for the sake of not waiting 10 seconds for hot water and having immediate hot water, it's a hell of a price to pay. So, but Ryan, good choice. We'll let you all know what we come up with and appreciate any suggestions you want to make. So if there's nothing else to cover, I appreciate your time today, guys. And we're finishing 8 minutes early. Awesome. So it's Miller time.